I want to talk today about some other things that were going on in the country that I think you'll find interesting, and it will be, to some degree, you'll know something about everything I talk about, but you may not know some of the details about some of the things that were going on. Now, in the 1930s, the national hero was not a political person, not a movie star, not a sports figure, but it was Charles Lindbergh. And when he finished his flight to Paris, he was an overnight success. His triumph made all the papers. He was front page news for several days, his flight, and then he made this sort of a congratulatory tour on the way home, and from that point forward, he was a very much in-demand person for public appearances, for endorsements, for speeches. He was America's hero as nobody else had been. And it's a rare thing when the Banner and the Tennessean back in these days, which were so competitive with each other, and some of you remember those days before the Banner went out of business, that they were still highly competitive. And you know, it really didn't matter if what the position of the Tennessean was. The Banner's position was always going to be the opposite. It just didn't matter. And you know, that's kind of a funny thing, that if Silliman Evans over at the Tennessean was in favor of it, then by George, the Stallmans were against it. So that's how this all went. But nonetheless, this was quite a feat. And he did it primarily. He had flown planes before and was very interested in aviation, but he did it primarily because there was a prize for the first money for the first person who was able to accomplish this, and so he became America's hero. And needless to say, President Coolidge was still in the White House at this time, and so he made a great to-do and production of the fact that an American had done this. And he was invited then to go down to Mexico, and at the request of the American ambassador to Mexico, and have a little tour with him of Mexico, see some of the sights of Mexico. And as a result of that, one of the people there was the ambassador's daughter, the ambassador to Mexico had been in politics, and his daughter was Anne Morrow. And so needless to say, the sparks flew, and she seemed to be the appropriate wife for an American hero. So they got married. Her father lived in New Jersey, and consequently, they built a house very near her parents in New Jersey. Charles Lindbergh had grown up in the Midwest, and he had some political people in his family as well. But this is the house that Anne Morrow Lindbergh and Charles Lindbergh built and lived in. And it was, by all accounts, a very, very lovely and spacious house for the time it was built. But then tragedy happened, and they had their first baby. The baby was kidnapped, and this became the story all over the country. I mean, it was headlines here, and you know, this kind of thing, I guess because of his name recognition, this became so much of a story that people went and bought papers. Even in the middle of the Depression in 1932, they went and bought papers just to read about what the update was on the Lindbergh baby. Now, the Lindbergh baby. So, you know, the thing about this birth of the baby and whatnot was little Charles Lindbergh Jr., they really expected to find him alive or get him back, because the person who had done the kidnapping had put a ladder on the outside windows, one of these windows here on the house, the second story windows. He had put a ladder there, climbed up after the baby had been put to bed for the night, And apparently this happened between 9 and 10 o'clock p.m. The baby's nanny went in to check on the baby, and the baby was not there. So the Lindberghs notified the local police. The New Jersey police, state police, got involved in this immediately. But this note was left on the windowsill, indicating that this person who had kidnapped the baby wanted a ransom. And so here you start seeing everybody in the country really looking everywhere they can to see if they can find this baby.